Hello, everyone. Welcome to A Course in Miracles 365, Awakening to Love. I'm Tomás Garza, your host, and I want to just say hello today to all of the people that are joining from live from all over the world. We've had some really wonderful interaction over the past few weeks here on this live stream, which is the purpose of doing this live. To me, I used to do live radio. I'm a podcast and show host. And in fact, I started out doing live internet radio. And I love the dynamic. I love the dynamic of not knowing what's going to come out of my mouth until it happens. That's always fun because you never know what's going to come up. Sometimes it might be stammering, and sometimes some pauses that might make you wonder exactly what I'm doing. But what I aim to do with this live stream is present A Course in Miracles, not my own perception of A Course in Miracles, but the Course itself. In other words, I know that many of you on this network can relate. In other words, I show up and I make myself a conduit for the Holy Spirit, for Spirit Source, God, my teacher, the voice for God, name the term. What you see here appears to be a human body with what appears to be a Navajo weaving right behind you, a nice rug. You see masks and paintings and a wall, and there's a light switch right there. What you don't see is all the clutter around on my desk, all the papers, a stack of mail, probably bills or something that I have yet to open. What you see here on the screen is not really what's happening. I'm showing up and I ask every day to be a conduit for the voice for God, quite frankly. That's another word, another term for the Holy Spirit in A Course in Miracles, if you're familiar with that. If you're not familiar with the Course, the Holy Spirit is something that, of course, in a Christian tradition, in the Judeo-Christian trilogy of God, Jesus, Holy Spirit, that's kind of the component that is often least understood. What exactly is the Holy Spirit? Who is the Holy Spirit, right? In A Course in Miracles, one is encouraged and invited to adopt the Holy Spirit, in other words, the voice for God, the universal inspiration, friend with a capital F, like a spiritual friend, a guide, in other words. One's encouraged to adopt the Holy Spirit as one's teacher. So this is who is speaking here on these live streams. What I do offer is my experience with A Course in Miracles. Now, if you've not watched this live stream, first of all, welcome. We're going through a famous, or if you prefer, an infamous segment of the course known as the Workbook for Students. Now, it is a series of daily ideas. One builds upon another. There are, as you might have guessed, 365 of them. Therefore, one can start with lesson one and do one lesson a day. No more than that, by the way, is what's recommended. And in a year's time, have completed the workbook. So if you've done this before, you'll know that when you get to lesson 365 and complete it, it's not the end. It's not about checking off boxes. Daily practice periods are not about checking off boxes and making sure that you force yourself to meditate X number of times a day. It's not about that. When you get to the end, you realize the journey's ongoing. And if you were to pick right back up again, which some people do, then you would learn even more. The journey is ongoing. And in this fashion, a lesson or an idea, they're really ideas. They're short statements. Each lesson is a very easy to commit to memory, short statement that we can study and, more importantly, practice. A Course in Miracles is about gaining practical experience of the love of God. It's training on the level of mind, which is on the level of experience. And we then become more attenuated to the presence of love in our lives. I don't mean simple romantic love between two people. I mean abstract love. God is love, love with a capital L, which is who we really are. In practicing these exercises, we open ourselves, we open our mind to this presence, which is always there and has never gone anywhere, despite all of our myriad wanderings in this world. In other words, despite all of our drama, we all have it. So I mentioned a minute ago that in the workbook, one lesson builds upon the next. And it's very important to do these in sequential order. Why? Because they do build on each other. And today's example is a very good example of that. We're at lesson 129 today. Beyond this world, there is a world that I want. So let's back up. This builds off of lesson 128, which we covered yesterday right here on this show. The world I see holds nothing that I want. That was yesterday. The world I see holds nothing that I want. If you're interested in viewing this video, I would go back to Enlightened World Network's YouTube channel, and the show has a playlist. In fact, every show on the network has a playlist that's updated every day with the most recent videos, and you can see this show from yesterday. That was lesson 128. The world I see holds nothing that I want. Today, lesson 129. Beyond this world, there is a world that I want. So let's talk for a minute about a pitfall, and it is definitely an obstacle. It's a hindrance that it can occur, It doesn't have to occur, but it can. So let's talk about it. This is something that happens to some people along a spiritual path. And in the very first paragraph of the commentary today, the Course makes it very, very clear that we can't stop just at renouncing this world of form and time and bodies. Now, we know from our study up to this point that this is not who we really are. And ultimately, this is not reality. If you're just joining me, that can be a shocker, but I would go back and begin these exercises from lesson 1. And if you have questions, please put them in the comment thread. I'm more than happy to help. In fact, that's what I'm here to do. So definitely, please feel free. If you have comments, questions, anything that you'd like clarification on, this is why I'm here. This is why we're doing this live. So beyond this world, there's a world that I want. It's not enough just to say, okay, none of this that I'm experiencing is real, and leave it at that. Simple renunciation is not enough, because one then legitimately can ask the question, okay, what's next? What's next? If none of this is real, what's next? And if you don't get an answer on that, it's all too common for people to say, okay, what's the point? If none of this is real, what's the point? Why am I doing this? Why am I here? It's not a bad question in and of itself, but if you use it to fall into a nihilistic frame of mind that none of this exists, there's no purpose in life, I'm just going to give up and sit here, or possibly even more damaging, I'm just going to be as hedonistic and uncaring as possible, right? Because it doesn't matter anyway. Actually, it does matter. So we have lesson 129. Renunciation itself is not enough. So what we're doing in A Course in Miracles, what we're doing in spiritual practice, is taking the next step. It is not enough to simply say that the world I see holds nothing that I want. One must ultimately take the next step. Beyond this world, there is a world that I want. A Course in Miracles operates on a couple of different levels. There is a level of pure non-dualism here in the Course that we're being pointed to. Now, we're on the level of form. We appear to be in human bodies. We're subject to time and gray hair and the process of what we call aging, where everything is subject to change. We're subject to change as long as we identify with the human body as a man, woman, as a certain occupation, as a certain status in the world, right? Certain categories. Everything shifts, everything changes. It's not stable. Even if you have a period of relative stability, it doesn't last. Nothing in this world lasts. And what we really want is peace, which cannot be found in this world. However, we appear to be here, so we have spiritual practice that meets us where we are. A Course in Miracles has another much more practical level, and that's where the action is, that meets us where we are with the situation that we find ourselves in, I should say, appear to find ourselves in, and shows us practical steps to take so that we may find a way out, so that we may change our minds, so that we may change and fundamentally alter our perception. It's about choosing love or God instead of the ego, instead of fear. The more we practice this, and the workbook for students gives daily suggestions for just how to do that, and I highly recommend that you follow them as closely to the suggestions as possible, understanding that some days will be easier than others. That's part of it. It's absolutely part of it. Yeah. So what we're doing here is we perceive things wrongly when we identify with the ego. We're on a path here with A Course in Miracles as a very powerful tool to help us get there, to change our perception, to see a different world, in other words. And this is a world of peace. It's a world of joy where we begin to experience and then begin to have a constant experience of our limitlessness. The Course talks about this as purified perception or as right-mindedness. It talks about it as a world forgiven, the real world. There are a lot of terms for this, but this is a constant experience of love and joy. Now, who we truly are is in fact beyond even that. There is nothing in perception, even right-minded perception with the Holy Spirit, purified perception, the world we're getting to here, even that ultimately has to be set aside. But when we get to seeing the world that we want, it's very easy to do. Even that is exchanged for direct communication with God, union, awakening, enlightenment, whatever the term is that you choose to use, whatever really it is that speaks to you. I would use whatever terminology inspires you to practice. Yeah, that's what I want to say. I would use whatever terminology inspires you to practice to get in touch with your inner teacher. Yes, do that. Yeah, if it's enlightenment, use that, right? Awakening, union with God, oneness with God, that's all beyond words. It's beyond space and time. Words can't describe it. It is direct experience that is something that we can only point toward with words. It's something that we can only point toward with a live stream. However, when we've changed our minds, when we perceive differently, we're right at the threshold of that. And as the Course puts it, God takes the final step himself, and we don't stay very long in a world of suffering. It's where we're all headed. So, beyond this world, there is a world that I want. Now, as we talked about yesterday, we think we want things in this world. We think that that's going to bring us lasting peace, happiness, salvation, lasting joy. It won't. Temporary, sure, yeah. Lasting, never. That's not possible. It's not possible. Even the greatest love relationships in this world end. Why? Someone leaves the physical body. Yeah. Spirit, on the other hand, has no end. In exchanging the world that we don't want for the one that we do, we become that much closer to it. We're awakening to it. As the subtitle of this live stream suggests, we're awakening to love. So how do we practice this? Well, the workbook gives us several practice suggestions every day. And today, we simply recite the day's idea that beyond this world, there is a world that I want. And then we go on to say, and we can say this either out loud or in our minds, I choose to see that world instead of this, for here is nothing that I really want. Yeah, here's nothing that I really want. Decay, what we call death, frustration, lack, yeah, a sense of not being worthy. Instead, how about limitlessness? How about we exchange fear for love? How about we exchange sorrow for joy? How about that? And then we sit quietly after reciting these words and allow your teacher, whatever or whomever you call it, him, her, them, doesn't matter the terminology. We sit quietly and allow our inner teacher to speak to us. And we sit there trusting that that message will come. We do not know what form that message will take. You may receive audible spoken messages. Something may occur in your life, in nature, or otherwise as a sign. You may see something on the internet or read something in a book that triggers a deep-seated memory, a recognition, a remembrance of who you are. Trust that this will come. This world that we want awaits only a choice. It awaits only our decision to have it, to experience it. It's more of an experience because we don't possess it. It's not property. Property is a term of the ego that sees itself as cut off and separate from everyone else, which, if you're gathering from all of this, we are not separate. So how do you get to have the experience of unity, of connectedness? Well, you decide to do this. You decide to experience it, and then you decide to practice. And you do it moment to moment. That's how. It awaits only your choice. There are naturally many, many different ways to practice. And what I would offer, if you're serious about A Course in Miracles, if you're serious about a workbook for students and for going through these activities in order, I would submit that when the Course suggests a number of practice periods, in other words, meditation sessions per day, if it says 3, for example, please have some grace and some compassion for yourself if you're only able to do 2. Now, when I work with people in a group setting on this workbook, whether it is in a study group or an online community, a workshop, a seminar, whatever that is, people tend to quit if they don't follow things to the letter of the suggestion. So if it's helpful to you, what I've chosen to do is to view this as a suggestion for practice and to give myself some grace, because every day is different. Some days we absolutely, completely, legitimately get swept away, don't we? I mean, it just happens. There are things here in the world that we need to attend to, like bills. I need to attend to some of this paper that surrounds me, these unopened pieces of mail that might be bills. So we might have to open those up and pay them, things like that. If you are able to do what the workbook suggests or what you habitually do in your practice, whether it involves A Course in Miracles or not, that's great. And on those days where you've reached the end of the day and you find you have not, please have some love and compassion for yourself and understand that we cannot expect ourselves to get this in a blinding flash of light. Now you may, and if you do, and if you have, I really want you to get a hold of me so I can have you as a guest here on the show. Really, seriously. Can happen, but we can't expect that to happen. Most often, of course, it's a process. So what do we do in a process? We make the decision to show up yet again. We choose yet again. We choose love yet again. We choose to recite the day's idea yet again. We choose to sit and meditate. We choose to take a walk on the beach or in the desert, in the mountains, the woods. We choose self-care. We choose getting into a state of mind where we're more able to hear our inner teacher. That's what we're doing here. That's what we're doing here. And that path is going to look very, very differently for one person as opposed to another, right? Because we're all in a different station here in life with different responsibilities, different things that are occupying our time. All right, so I want to say hello really quickly here. Claudia, hi, how are you? And yeah, Claudia, hi, thank you for joining me. And it looks like Lecrani, hello, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, thank you for tuning in here today. Now, if you all are tuning in for the very first time, or if any of you is tuning in for the first time here, this show runs every day but Sunday here on Enlightened World Network. I typically take Sundays off. That's hike day, almost always, for my wife, Cindy, and me. And you can find all of the back episodes, if you'd like to see more, on Enlightened World Network's YouTube channel. So let me know. Hi, Kimberly, how are you? Let me know if you have comments, if you have questions about this. These live streams are all relatively short, 20 minutes on the average, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, depending on the day. And I invite you to just reach out, say hello. And if you have comments or questions, I'm certainly here to help you. So thank you so much, all of you, for tuning in, and I will see you